as we talked about when we did a show hours after the massacre, as we expected, as we knew would happen, Australia's politicians who are responsible for the attack, for not preventing it, for allowing the atmosphere that encouraged it, are now doubling down on their policies. Uh, well, there's a lot to say about it, so let's get right to it. Welcome to the reality show. I'm Razi Ginsburg, joined by James Valiant and Daniel Kraus. Um, let's start with, I know we have two videos of the Prime Minister because he, naturally will say a lot of things after something like this happens in his country on his watch. Let's and of course, we understand like there's the initial statement he made. Um, the written statement, which didn't say anything about Jews, didn't say anything about anti-Semitism. I don't think anybody was surprised, although he did fix it in following statements. And yeah, sometimes when you make an initial statement, let's say for that, there might be an excuse. What there isn't an excuse for is what we're about to see.
Which one do you want to play first?
Either one of him talking and probably shortly thereafter the other one.
Just briefly, to be clear, your priority from National Cabinet in relation to the gun laws, what is the number one priority for you?
I would put them all together, making sure that they operate effectively and that they're kept up to date and that they're updated for the changing threat. We live in a more dangerous world in 2025. The threat of anti-Semitism, as we have seen, is very real. Threats of other occurrences, such as the rise in the far right, which has also been identified, of course, by Mike Burgess, is also a threat as well.
Okay, interesting. First of all, yeah, white supremacists tend to be anti-Semites. This is a problem when you don't identify the core. You know, anti-Semitism is one aspect of every ideology that includes it. Leftist anti-Semites have their reasons for hating Jews. White supremacists have their reasons, and Islamists have or Muslims have their religion as the reason for why they want to kill all the Jews. So taking that apart is already problematic. Like if he's gonna skip something, I'd rather he skipped leave out anti-Semitism and include Islam because that is the ideology, and you're not gonna solve it if you when you say anti-Semitism, a natural policy would be something like we're going to send cops to where Jews are to protect them, which is of course never going to be fully successful. If you identify the problem as Islam, you do what needs to be done, which is sending police to where Muslims are, especially where Islam is preached. Yeah, James.
Yeah, that's exactly it. There's a cosmic failure of the government here. On notice now for the last 2 years, with all kinds of rising incidents of violence against his Jewish population, uh, uh, he focuses on gun control. Really? 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 That's the problem here? No, that in itself is despicable. No, you don't have a problem with your gun laws not being strict enough. I mean, I understand that one of these two monsters had six firearms, but it's not your lax gun control that was that was your problem here. You feel bad because of your lax gun control, Mr. Prime Minister? No, I don't know. That's not it. You're obviously missing the entire point. No, it was the way you ignored rising anti-Semitic violence by Muslims, the way you run cover, verbal and ideological cover for Muslims. That has been the problem. The way you brought up Islamophobia in the same breath as anti-Semitism, and you're right. You see, they keep refusing, and uh, I'm sure you'll have more clips here. That in the entire response by the Australian government is despicable in just that way. They refuse to acknowledge, just as my country refused after 9/11, refused to name the real source of the problem, as you point out, Islam. Mr. Prime Minister, As I pointed out in the Daily Objective earlier, you've had violence coming from both Iranian-inspired Muslims, ISIS-inspired Muslims. You're gonna generalize and get the point here? Get where this is coming from? Get where the violence is coming from in your country? It's not coming from Jews and Christians against Muslims. It's coming from every variety of Muslim against Jews. You get it? The guy, no one is that dense. No one is that dense. But to have to spin it like that, well, it's gun control, and boy, we really need to crack down and, with gun control. No, this attack went on for how long? Minute after minute after minute after minute until 10 minutes past 15 minutes. What? It lasted 20 minutes? That is a cosmic failure on the part of the police. They had all kinds of notice that there was rising anti-Semitism in their country, rising anti-Semitic violence and crime. And as I say, they were on absolutely complete notice about what the problem was. And here the cops don't even show up. Don't even, we were this guy a hero, Ahmed al-Ahmed. He's a hero. Why? Because the cops had not yet intervened. The cops weren't there. But you're absolutely right. It goes beyond that. Before this ever happened, they should have already been infiltrating the Muslim communities. They should have been infiltrating Islamic groups. They should have already had, intelligence is really good in advanced Western countries. If you penetrate, how the United States brought down the KKK. We sent in the FBI to infiltrate, and so we could anticipate all the crime. And after a few decades, of course, the KKK becomes a relatively insignificant factor in American politics. That's what you have to do. Islam has become a significant factor in your on the criminal radar screen, Australia. And you guys have dropped the ball. You should have been on it years ago. And adding insult to injury, of course, you only encouraged it yourself, sir, by saying that you will recognize a Palestinian state in the wake of October 7th. You were pleading for it. You were begging for it with both hands, and blind to the consequences of your own statements, policies, and actions. As I say, the problem is not Christians and Jews slaughtering innocent Muslims. No. In your country, the problem is criminal attacks on Jewish people that have now climaxed in a slaughter of innocent civilians on your watch. A total failure of government's sole responsibility, really, to protect the lives, freedom, and safety of their people. You violated that, you broke that, you let the ball down on that. You have betrayed the people of your country, sir. This government ought to be thrown out at the next opportunity for obvious reasons. They can't protect their own people. People get shot up like they're at a shooting gallery at the beach because they're out in the open on the first night of Hanukkah, and they're getting slaughtered at an iconic beach in Sydney, Australia. Sir, you have failed because you have failed to identify the problem. You failed to take any steps to prevent it from happening, and you fully encouraged it with your overt foreign policy. No, it's across the board. This guy has blood dripping from his hands, and if that's the kind of excuse, well, we need to have tougher gun control laws. That is despicable.
Yeah. Deborah asks in the chat, since the son was on a terror watch list, why did the father still have 6 guns? That is an excellent question, and will be the first question I ask Prime Minister Albanese when I interview him on the Daily Objective, if he ever decides to come on the show. There's okay. There's a comment by Ideology. Ideology says the reason why I'm not a kumbayaist regarding Islam is because anti-Semitism begins when you open the Quran. It's fair to say that any young Muslim never stood a chance at living a peaceful life. It's not fair to say because they all have free will. But yes, very few of us venture far outside the ideas that we're brought up with, which is very unfortunate. And the more sort of thorough your indoctrination is, as it is in Islam, the more difficult it is to fight back against it. And unfortunately, we don't see too many people in those communities.
You know something? Anti-Semitism was cooked into the books. I'm going to say something very controversial here. Anti-Semitism was sort of cooked into the books of the New Testament, too. It was only in my lifetime within my lifetime that the Catholic Church officially forgave the Jews for killing Jesus? And was there all kinds of anti-Semitic violent pogroms, expulsions, climaxing in the Holocaust just 80 years ago? Okay, the Christian world has been viciously, murderously anti-Semitic, and it traces its roots back to its holy scriptures too, the Gospels, which systematically, and I can cite biblical scholars as distinguished as Bart Ehrman, the Passion narrative is designed to collectively blame the Jews and exonerate the Romans for a Roman execution of Jesus, a Jewish person, by the way. So it's anti-Semitism is also baked into the cake of Islam. You can't read the Quran or in various hadith without seeing, yeah, kill the Jews wherever you find them. And like I said in the last program, it's really obvious in the Quran. I would just alert the Christian world here too. You know, the Islamic world, as I say, is technically at war with every non-Muslim country. It is the duty of Muslims to sack, conquer, dominate every non-Muslim out there. That's right in the Quran. It's not just, and you're absolutely correct, anti-Semitism is baked into the cake of the holy scriptures of Islam, but it was baked into the cake of the holy scriptures of Christianity too. Christianity, as I say, experienced an enlightenment, right? 250, 300, 350 years ago, Europe changed. The Christian world changed. They became civilized with ideas like individual rights, a respect for reason, a respect for the individual. That did not happen in the Islamic world. And so the anti-Semitism baked into their religion is still killing people.
Yeah. Let me quickly read a couple of comments from Susie. Susie says, there was a female cop hiding behind a car in the same video clip of Mr. Ahmed taking down the shooter. Cops were there, but perhaps that one had no gun or was frozen in fear. And then Susie says, son on watch list, dad able to get guns. They both spend a month in Philippines ISIS hotspot right before attack, and no red flags went up. Complete fuck up. Complete fuck up is as generous as we can
A
be about
generous, and you make a good
what this.
point though. In the Philippines, there is a large pocket festering of Islamist hatred and violence. And yeah, is it surprising that this a transmission belt here? Not at all. So it's a failure of many countries. Oh yeah, it isn't just Australia, believe me. But until we recognize Islam is the enemy, Islam is the root cause of the problem here. And there, the commentator we had a second ago is exactly right. You know, we have to recognize that the problem here is, and I'll go, because of my comparison, I'll go further. It's mysticism, it's religiosity that is the enemy here. Because when you surrender your mind, when you give up reason, when you detach yourself from your only means of connecting yourself to reality, you start floating away in this world of intense tribalist emotions disconnected from reality. The enemy is mysticism, okay? Only reason can answer the question here. And what we're faced here is the most raw, savage form of mysticism, virulent mysticism in the world today, namely the way Islam is practiced by most Muslims today. Just say it, get used to saying it, get comfortable saying it. Islam is the cause. Islam is the enemy. There is a religious factor here. And one of the most disgusting things about the Australian government's response is, of course, they stood on their head to say exactly the opposite. This isn't Islam. Just like my president, after 9/11, thousands of American civilians are slaughtered, you know, on 9/11, 2001. And within days, my president comes out and says, Islam's a religion of peace. Okay? That's never going to fix the problem. And here we are, what, almost 25 or more than 24 years on, more than 24 years on. Guess what? Muslims are still slaughtering people.
Yeah. Yeah. When we say the authorities should infiltrate the mosques, I'd love to see that happen. I doubt it. I know it's not going to happen in Slovakia, Daniel, because you have no mosques. Any thoughts on on Australia, though?
Well, we do have prayer rooms, but no official mosques, since to become official religion in Slovakia, you need like 50,000 members, which was a law created specifically to actually deny Muslims an ability to establish religion, which is a bit problematic. But sort of going into, again, this thing. So starting with the gun laws, that he talked about. Again, I mean, it's like a joke, right? It's like saying, okay, we are starting a war on terror, and what we'll start with is like haunted houses in America. It's like, what are you even talking? Like, this has nothing to do with the other thing. The main issue here is that some people decided, because this is, James was a prosecutor for a long time, and when something like murder happens, I believe like absolute majority is, a family member or somebody close by, right? There's like an emotional close thing. It's always the wife, unless the wife is the one who was killed, then it's the husband. It's like that's usually how it happens, because it's like an emotional thing. But with this thing, it's somebody decided to go target people they didn't know simply because they were associated with certain idea that had in mind. This is not something you solve with, oh, if only they had 3 guns instead of 6, this wouldn't have happened.
Right.
And I don't know if this was like looked into more, but I've heard that they even had like explosives set up, right? It's, when you want to commit something like this, nothing will stop you from doing so. So trying to argue that if simply changing the gun laws will change it is, I mean, he's lying to yourself, evading, or as what I think it actually is, he's trying to evade from what the actual issue is. When it comes to the sort of, the way he talks about, he says the threat of anti-Semitism is real. He says that, but he doesn't believe it. And this is what I hate, when like people assume that if you just say something, you like actually believe in the. No, the actions matter. Like, are you actually showing something that is proving that what you're saying is real? So threat of anti-Semitism is real? No, he doesn't believe in that. Mossad knew something would happen in Sydney. They've contacted Israel, and then Israel contacted Australia. 1 week before this happened, there was another contact from Israel saying, "Hey guys, I hope you're ready for this. Something might happen." I think Susie mentioned about sort of the training of the police officers, right? And yeah, I wouldn't necessarily assume that every single police officers has the counterterrorism training or specific training for like every single situation that might happen, right? That's why intelligence is a big thing. Knowing that something might happen, so having a counter-terrorist unit ready to deploy, be ready in the region or even on site to be able to deal with the single thing. Like, I live in a town of like 20,000 people. I assume the police officers here don't really have like a, bomb, like an, if there is like a bomb somewhere, like specific training to like deal with that. Because we don't have infinite amount of training for every police officers and everything, right? But that's why intelligence is important, and that's what they ignore. They ignore learning about these groups, trying to watch for something like this to happen. That's why we're seeing more and more of these attacks. And again, complete, like he says he focuses on anti-Semitism, but no, he ignored this. And just one quick thing about the far-right groups. I mean, I don't know, like again, it's such a weird thing to say like right after this. I mean, I'm sure it sort of like far right is a problem. I mean, it's would be crazy to say no. But when was the last time that happened in Australia? I mean, I don't follow politics in Australia that closely, but again, this happened right now, and he tries to focus specifically
Yeah.
on this when Islamist attacks are the
And yeah,
problem
that's
right
the
now.
whole issue with it. There's no issue. It's great that the authorities want to look into far right groups. Absolutely. Like I say about Islamist groups and others, if they preach it, there's a chance they might practice it, and the authorities should look into that. But yeah, you know,
No,
yeah.
these skinhead neo-Nazis exist in the United Kingdom, in the United States, in Australia. And isn't it amazing how the governments in those countries will take appropriate steps, infiltrate those groups, figure out the law enforcement consequences, the security risks. They'll take somehow when it comes to those right-wing groups, Mr. Prime Minister, you all seem to be really effective at getting to it, because guess who's getting killed? It's Jewish people. And guess who's killing them? Muslims. Maybe you need to approach with the same rigor and intensity you do with the neo-Nazi skinhead, the ultra-Christian white groups that we in the English-speaking world, oh yeah, we have them. But isn't it funny how our governments will infiltrate those groups and take the appropriate law enforcement steps with those groups? No, you, sir, have failed to do so when it comes to Islam and Islamic groups. Obviously.
Yeah. By the way, Daniel, you mentioned, cops in small towns might not have bomb training and stuff. They should all have gun training. They should all know how to shoot a gun
A
when somebody
civilian,
else
a
is shooting
fruit
a gun.
stand owner was able to do it, but not the cop?
Yeah.
Good Lord.
That's a basic thing. And yeah, cops should carry guns. If you don't trust cops to carry guns, the person you're not trusting shouldn't be a cop, period. Thank you, PC, for the super chat. Did I read PC's super chat? PC is a very generous super chatter, and I read quite a few of
Prolific,
his
yes.
video. If I'm reading it again, fine. Thank you, PC. PC says, James, as a Jew, I must say no religion is correct. All are man-made. Gods do not exist. Yeah, I agree with all that except the as a Jew part. This is just as a rational thinking person. Speaking of rational thinking person, here is somebody who is not one. Let's hear some more. I don't think there's anything in this clip that we didn't hear in the previous clip. I just think if some people's blood hasn't reached boiling level yet, let's ask the Prime Minister to help with that.
We take Asia's advice very seriously. We work closely with them. We receive regular updates as well. The Director General of Asia has warned about a range of threats, be it anti-Semitism, the rise of right-wing extremist groups as well. And we continue to work closely with our security agencies.
So again, first of all, he talks about right-wing extremism and anti-Semitism as two different things, because sometimes you need to, show that there's more than one threat you're talking about, but he does not mention the threat that actually materialized, that is the reason why he's doing more press conferences and interviews now, because he needs to respond to an atrocity that happened in his country, on his watch, and he does it repeatedly in various media outlets and various places without once identifying the actual cause and ideas behind that attack. This is the Prime Minister's way in political newspeak, not saying what you're actually saying. This is his way of guaranteeing that he's not going to do anything about the actual problem.
Exactly. This is cover for his inaction of the past, and guess what? Cover for his continued inaction, which I think we can expect from this loser. He admits that he was warned. Now, anyone who's been following the headlines knows the facts on the ground show that there was increasing anti-Semitic crime and violence. Okay, he was on plenty of notice. Just looking at the statistics, as you point out, a day does not go by without an anti-Semitic attack happening in Australia. I mean, some of them have been very, very disturbing. To the gas chambers right after October 7th. I mean, on and on and on. Thousands of cars in Jewish neighborhoods have been set ablaze. Thousands of swastikas have been painted in Jewish neighborhoods. How much? He was not only on notice from that, he was actually on specific notice. That is to say, get this, the rabbi who was killed the other day on the beach had written just a couple of weeks ago a warning, in effect, and now we learned that the Israeli Prime Minister, Mossad, had given even more specific warnings. So anyone who's followed the news and he admits it. He admits it right here. We had been warned of the threats. And that is why when we turn around and we look at how pathetic the law enforcement response here was, that a guy who runs a fruit stand had to be the hero here, and not an Australian cop, a New South Wales police officer was the hero here. It was the guy who owned a fruit stand. Okay, that is tremendously disturbing, sir. Your government is in my view, morally responsible for what happened here because you looked the other way. You evaded the actual causes. And by the sound of it, you're still evading the actual cause of it. It ain't gun control. It isn't right-wing extremism. It is Islam. It is anti-Semitism, whether of the right or the left, inspired by the way Islam is understood today. Say it. Like I said, get used to saying it. Get it out of your mouth. Make it comfortable. Habituate it. Get comfortable with it. Islam, as it is practiced today, is the cause. Unbelievable.
Thank you, Use Your Delusion, for gifting an Ayn Rand Center UK YouTube membership, and congratulations, Jen, for receiving that gifted membership, which you will enjoy for a month, starting right after, not right after the show, but in is it 2 hours from now, the Atlas Shrugged book club with Shoshana Milgram, one of the world's leading authorities on Rand's work. That is one of the benefits you get. Another one is the Sunday sessions on Objectivism, the Philosophy of Ayn Rand, run by James Valiant. So yeah, there's a lot of value in that membership. I hope you enjoy it and make the most of it. Daniel.
Yeah, I mean, something that I haven't heard yet, maybe I've missed it, but sort of talking about responsibility, talking about, okay, who's taking responsibility for this? What are the actions that will be taken to prevent this? My favorite example of the corrupt or sort of like the corruption of this process is, okay, this is not a funny thing, when Prime Minister of my country was shot, when Robert Fico was shot last year. By the way, it was somebody was allowed to get like basically 2 meters away from him, was able to shoot him 5 times and like into him, like 5 holes in his body, with 3 bodyguards around him, and thankfully was lucky enough to survive that. But then there was investigation of the whole incident, and the results of the investigation was everybody did everything properly. Like the bodyguards did everything properly. So apparently the standard is, if you know, you want to shoot a prime minister in Slovakia, you can get 5 shots in, and that's like within acceptable means. And I want an investigation of this in Australia, right? Like, what went wrong? Why did this happen? Or is the result, hey, if 2 father and son duo have 6 guns and want to go kill a bunch of Jews, they can kill a bunch of dozens before we actually intervene. Is that the standard that is basically now in Australia? Or will there be something more be put in place? Some investigation, somebody fired. I think we were advocating for resignation of Benjamin Netanyahu after October 7, because that is unforgivable thing to allow to go on under your administration, even if there is nobody else better. There are certain things that if they are done under your, you know, under your rule or under your governance, even if you didn't have the direct sort of cause or correlation for it, the fact that this happened under your watch, the fact that you couldn't have prevented that, is enough to get you kicked out from a job in my scenario. And the fact is, this is what needs to happen in Australia, right? It's this is not the first anti-Semitic attack. We had the synagogue attack. As James mentioned, we had cars being torched, increasing amount of anti-Semitic crime. What are the steps being put in place to prevent this?
By the way, some of us called for Netanyahu to resign immediately. Some of us didn't like the fact that we were saying it immediately, and understandably, yeah.
Did I?
I waited. I did. I admit it. I waited because I wanted to give him a chance. But I'll tell you, as the time goes on, you know, let me put it this way: when we'd entered the next month, it was beyond that. Now he had obviously failed.
I have to say,
failed by any objective standard. If he'd been preparing and if he'd been secretly working behind the scenes to really just smash Gaza to rubble, okay. But there's only so long that fuse will last before I blow and I say you've failed. And I guess it's also because I'm an American. I'm not an Israeli. So I want it. I was looking from the outside, and I was still, frankly, in a state of post-traumatic stress from the videos you had me watch from October 7th. And so I was going to give him a chance to, you know, deal with the shock as well. But in any case, it is obviously a failure of the government in both cases. I mean, at this point, there can be no doubt that within 2 days, Gaza City should have been complete rubble, as I now say, in retrospect. But look at this Australian Prime Minister. The failure, I mean, how many unprecedented rise in anti-Semitic crime in his country over the last 2 years. I mean, you look at the graph, I mean, it's sharp and startling. And so whatever he thinks he did, it was obviously inadequate. And there's a full stop. The guy's got to go. The guy is unable to protect his citizens from terrorist violence.
I just quickly have to say, in the context of calling for Netanyahu's resignation, I stand by it. I still
No,
wouldn't
you were
vote
right,
for the
as it
guy no
turns
matter
out,
what.
Rossi.
But while I do tell people all the time, go see what we were saying immediately after October 7th, I still think you should. I'm, he's done more than I expected. He's done far less than I've been advocating for. But even if you look at the different fronts that Israel is fighting on, I think Gaza is somewhere in the middle. Iran and Lebanon were done very well, not as well as I would have liked because they stopped short of victory. West Bank is probably the one that I think is worse because Israel is kind of seemingly waiting for an October 7th style attack to justify fighting back, and that's
Yeah.
not the government's job. But even with Gaza, where I think again so much more should have been done. I
Well,
look again, I said this a few days ago. I look at moments like today and yesterday when Gaza is flooded and people are um, in their tents, and I take some comfort in the discomfort of people there who, if they're not reconsidering their life choices now, then may they continue to suffer.
the continued existence of the Islamic Republic of Iran, is the fault of my presidents and my country. We should have recognized the threat to America, the threat to the world that Iran is more than 45 years ago. And so we've had a half century now of ignoring the facts of reality when it comes to Islam, and in particular, Iran. So I do believe when it came to Hezbollah and Lebanon, wow, what a great job Netanyahu did. When it comes to Hamas, Hamas is still an organization. Hezbollah is still an organization. Why should that even be, Mr. Netanyahu? That is a failure to protect your own people. But the world has failed. America has failed. Israel has failed to deal with the threat from the Islamic world. There's just no question about it. And I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
And this Prime Minister of Australia has failed to protect his own people. I mean, there's no more notice that any rational person using any kind of objective method applied to this could miss. Okay?
Yeah.
You have failed, sir. You are responsible for the death of those innocent people on the beach.
And as we've seen in those two videos, he's guaranteeing failure in the future. On the Lebanon front, there's going to be it's going to be interesting soon on the Lebanon front. A few months later on the Gaza front, because the deadline for Hezbollah to disarm, according to this ceasefire, is the end of December. Netanyahu is meeting Trump in DC on December 29th. It'll be very interesting to see if Israel is actually allowed to do what needs to be done come early January. And then I believe it's March, sometime in March, right, that the deadline for Hamas to disarm is. And that's going to be a huge test because what needs to happen in March, when we all know what's not going to happen, which is Hamas disarming, again, needs to happen today, needs to happen yesterday, needed to happen on October 6, 2023, but absolutely in March, even within the parameters set by Trump, that is when Israel must act. I very, very much hope that we're going to be here in early January talking about how Israel is doing what needs to be done in Lebanon and taking it that one step further from last time, and then in March, if not earlier, doing what needs to be done in Gaza and taking it several steps further than it has so far. But when we talk about Australia, we talk about how the Prime Minister is just telling us that he's going to completely ignore the people who did this when he's trying to prevent future attacks. One of the things we talked about, James, you and I talked about this in the first show we did about the attack hours after it happened, that Netanyahu said, I sent this letter in August telling the prime minister that this is happening, that anti-Semitism is rampant, that his policies, his threat to recognize a Palestinian state is inspiring such attacks. Here is this is from a Guardian article in when is this? July, I believe. Daniel, I don't know if you see the date for this. Oh yeah, July 22nd, 2025. Trump offers, quote, greatest chance for Gaza ceasefire, Penny Wong insists, as Australia condemns Israel actions. Australia and 27 other countries have said it is horrifying that more than 800 Palestinians have been killed while seeking aid. Okay, the context for this, for people who don't remember, because it's been, you've experienced, what, 5 months of Palestinian lies since, and it's kind of hard to sift through it. This was when Israel and the U.S. said enough is enough with Hamas hogging all the aid that we're sending to them and their people. So we're gonna set up our own way of distributing aid, and Hamas was firing at those people as well, was shooting, was killing. We don't know how many. We know how many they report that have been killed, but they, of course, blame Israel, and governments of the West like Australia, repeated it without question, as they've been repeating everything that Hamas has said pretty much since the massacre of October 7th ended. From that point, Hamas became their source of information and the source of the information that they use to then condemn Israel. They are telling their own people to do what was done, on the bridge a couple of months ago. They're telling them Israel is the problem. They're inspiring the protests. The protests are thousands and thousands of people chanting "Globalize the Intifada," and then it trickles down eventually to the one or two or however many people who go out and actually globalize the Intifada.
Right. Amazing. So if you don't feed your enemy, and if the food is being taken by the enemy, Hamas itself, and not just the people, of course, if you feed the enemy population, you're feeding the enemy, period, full stop. But the idea is, even when Hamas, we know, is taking all the aid, Israel can't take steps. Israel with America can't take steps to say, well, we don't want it to go straight to Hamas, the perpetrators of October 7th. But of course, there were, quote, Palestinian civilians, end quote, who also participated on October 7th. Hamas, or a like group, would have the overwhelming support of the quote, Palestinians in Gaza. Leaving all that aside, even taking modest steps to prevent Hamas directly from getting that aid is somehow makes it Israel's fault. Now think about that. You have to hate Israel. You have to be yourself so mired in some kind of Israel hatred, anti-Semitism yourself. I don't know what kind of twisted, warped thinking goes on. But yeah, in effect, they become shills for Hamas because they use Hamas information, Hamas lies, Hamas disinformation, and Hamas lies as the base of their analysis. When everything that has come out from Hamas, the Gaza Health Ministry and any Hamas related, and by the way, all of their friends in the United Nations and UNRWA, has been an absolute lie. I mean, from the hospital car park all the way to, the sheer impossibility of the statistics they gave on casualties. I mean, mathematicians would come out and say this is from the range from absolutely impossible to incredibly improbable, the numbers that we were given, and still they accepted. They swallowed it whole, month after month, things they knew to be lies from Hamas. And the Western media, the Guardian, the BBC, all the way to down under. The media was saying, yep, we'll just repeat those Hamas lies as if they're true. No, that's part of the failure, Mr. Prime Minister. Part of the failure here is that you were buying into the entire apparatus of anti-Israel lies spread by Hamas and their many, many followers around the world, spreaders of grotesque misinformation. From the casualty numbers. I mean, Hamas itself, after a year, cut in half the number of children they claimed had been killed in Gaza. So even they are admitting that they had ridiculously exaggerated that. So when it comes straight from them and you don't correct yourself, now you're willfully blind. Now you're willfully becoming the shill of the perpetrators of October 7th.
Daniel.
Yeah, I mean, again, sort of going back to the recognition of the Palestinian state, that was a big thing that Australia did, and sort of the horror they had to do it with. I mean, it reminds me, and we'll talk about it. The Action Palestine kids, not kids, adults, who are now on the hunger strike because of the Palestinian situation. By the way, the people who are on hunger strike are in jail for going into a building with sledgehammers, doing 1 billion pounds of damage to the building, and using those sledgehammers also on the police officers, which with at least one of them I know being very badly injured. I'm not sure if she can even stand up after it. And those are now on hunger strike. And now everybody is, and I mean Jeremy Corbyn or Zara Sultana are like, David Lammy needs to do something. I mean, this is a critical thing. These people will die, and this is the same thing that's happening here, right? It's Palestinians. They cannot help themselves. They need to go into Israel and kill a bunch of people. We need to do something. We need to do something. Let's recognize the Palestinian state. Let's reward them for what they did, because somehow it's everybody has a right to opinion, and killing Jews and going out and doing it is an opinion. So we need to consider that and deal with that properly. And this is the kind of compartmentalized thinking, right? It's the idea of that everybody's opinion is kind of correct, everybody's kind of right. So if Palestinians are going out and killing Jews, well, they must have some valid reason for it. There must be something that's valid. So let's try recognizing the Palestinian state and see what happens. But no, it absolutely encourages this kind of violence. Any kind of submission, any kind of compromise when it comes to evil only encourages that evil. The Munich conference that gave up Czechoslovakia encouraged Hitler to invade Poland. The lack of support when it comes to Ukraine encourages Putin to invade more, or specifically after 2014, when nothing was done about Crimea, encourage him to invade, right? Might as well try. If we do not stand strong against China, they will invade Taiwan. This is again and again, and on the sort of personal level, right? It's if you are okay with pro-Palestinians going on the streets, yelling about killing Jews, celebrating October 7th, which we showed on the Daily Objective, in Australia, in Sydney. Again, people in Sydney were celebrating, Muslims in, well, they are still people. Muslim people in Sydney after October 7th were celebrating it. You are surprised that some of them, after the recognition of the Palestinian state, after this terrorist attack, wouldn't go and say and try, hey, might as well go kill Jews. What will happen? They'll probably, if somebody tries to stop us, if some fellow Muslim tries to stop us, they'll probably kill him too. So we are just in doing it.
Yeah, countries like Britain have a very, very big problem and a very big contradiction when they, openly, fully support Hamas in the Middle East, but don't really like it when it shows up here with organizations like Palestine Action. And on the one hand, they're saying, okay, they're in prison, they're awaiting trial, and they're choosing not to eat. It's not that we are starving them, although they might be able to say that, like the Palestinians keep saying that. And it's a very, very problematic contradiction that unfortunately I think will be solved in a certain direction. To see the claims by these so-called hunger strikers, and we're going to dedicate a whole episode to them in the coming days, but to see them pretending to be the victims of choosing not to eat the food that they get, because you get food in prison in the
Let
UK.
them
This is not a
starve.
Hamas tunnel. This is
You
not a
can't.
Palestinian prison. It's an English prison. You get food from the government. You choose not to eat it. You are not a victim. Okay,
Yeah.
but they've managed to push the narrative that the Palestinian savages who started this war and showed the world how they're starting this war are the victim. The government of this country bought it, and now they're expecting exactly the same. They're just like those, in the spring of last year, the Campus Intifada people, came out in Colombia and took over a building, took over the library, I believe it was, and then came out and did a press conference and said that we demand basic humanitarian aid. You know, there's like a burger place down the road. The best burger I've ever had is like right next to Columbia University. Just go there, get it. But no, they've said this about the terrorists and people bought it. So why not say it about, by the way, this contradiction that the US has and the UK has, Australia, I'm not sure it has it because it doesn't seem to really mind the terrorists on its soil. James, there was a super chat specifically for you. Thank
So,
you,
so,
Ideology,
so,
for the
sorry,
super.
what was the burger place?
What?
What was that burger place?
I don't remember the name, and I tried to look for it again because this was many years ago, but
Daniel's a big American burger fan.
it was. I'm really annoyed that I don't remember what it was because it was right up there.
No, it is ridiculous. What a joke to let someone's threat of starvation of themselves. What it reminds people though of is Gandhi. Okay. The fact that you think your cause is morally righteous does not make it morally righteous. In fact, all you're trying to do is say, "I'm the morally superior." There's this term, and I don't think it's always applicable, but in this case, it is super applicable. Virtue signaling. All they're doing, because they know damn well the British authorities won't let them starve. But what British authorities should recognize is that just because they think they're morally righteous does not mean their cause is morally righteous. What they're doing is trying to play just like Hamas itself. You see, we say we won't attack hospitals, schools, mosques, and so what do? We outline for the Islamic terrorists their strategy. Aha, let's put our weapons in hospitals, schools, mosques. Let's use the very thing that our enemy won't, because of its own altruist constraints, attack. Similarly here, if we sound like we're morally righteous, but you see, the issue is a moral one. Their concept of morality is evil. Again, I'm going to go over that slowly again. Their concept of morality is evil. They are starving on behalf of murderous, atrocity committing, mystic savages. Okay, so if they want to die, let them die. You can't prevent someone who's truly committed to killing themselves from killing themselves. Okay, what you have to say is, we don't care. The fact that you're morally outraged does not impress me. Your moral outrage is twisted and perverse. Okay, if you want to die for it, there's nothing we can do to stop it.
All right,
Bye.
guys. I'm gonna try to make A be non-A for the rest of this show and manage to read this super chat and get through two more videos in the less than 7 minutes we have. Let's see if we can do that. Thank you, Ideology, for the super chat. Ideology says, James, why do we not see any Muslim forums discussing issues like this anywhere? What's the pathology preventing any kind of introspection?
Well, I mean, we do have to bear in mind that these savages have nothing like free speech. All of the media in those countries is controlled. I mean, if you're in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia or the Islamic Republic of Iran or in the military dictatorship of Egypt, do you think you have free speech?
What
Okay,
about Muslim communities here?
yeah. Okay, that was what I was going to come to next. They have plenty of free speech in countries like the United Kingdom or the United States or Canada or Australia. So your point is very well taken, because Muslims are generally in favor of it. Real simple. It reveals the attitude dominating the culture of Islam today. That's the answer. The evil of what Islam represents today.
Former Prime Minister of Australia, Malcolm Turnbull, had some words. He is considered of the right, right? I don't know if he is one of the far-right extremists that the Prime Minister is going to go after as part of this, but
he's a former Prime Minister.
Yeah. But he's a former Prime Minister from the right. So I'm
For the
wondering
Liberals, which is the Conservative Party.
So yeah, will the current Prime Minister consider him one of the extremists that they need to go after is not clear, but let's hear what he had to say.
I would respectfully say to Bibi Netanyahu, please stay out of our politics.
Hours after this terrible incident happened, he very openly blamed your Prime Minister, Anthony Albanese, by saying that the recognition of Palestine was pouring fuel on anti-Semitism in Israel, in Australia, and he just, and that the government was weak in its response to those warning signs. Do you buy that criticism from the Israeli government?
No, I do not. And I would respectfully say to Bibi Netanyahu, please stay out of our politics. If you've got that kind of commentary to make, you are not helping. I know Netanyahu. I know him pretty well, actually. And I understand where he's coming from, his passion and so forth. But this is not helping. And it's not right. I mean, as Albanese has said, and as we all know, as Wes Streeting has said in your country, the vast majority of countries in the world recognise Palestine as a state. The vast majority support a two-state solution. Indeed,
Okay,
when I was
you know
Prime
what? I
Minister,
think,
Israel motion.
first of all, we can never watch any clip, certainly of somebody being interviewed from Channel 4 without me really wanting to vomit. The despicable way they ask the question, which, by the way, when it's an Israeli spokesperson, the speaker who's answering doesn't get through a whole sentence before he gets cut off. But yeah, so this is back to the point that I made on the Daily Objective of why I'm a reluctant Zionist, and the world we live in, we need a place where Jews, if they're being slaughtered, can at least arm themselves and defend themselves, and I don't see that going away anytime, that need going away. Part of it is there is that one Jewish state, and yes, that is not Australia's business. That is it's Australia's business, but it's very much Israel's business. Netanyahu is not, should not stay out of the business of Australia, declaring essentially open season on Australia's Jews. That's why there is a Jewish state. It is to stand up to things like this and to say to Australia, you know that you need to do a certain job here, and we are watching, and we are not okay with this happening.
Countries like Australia have been butting their big fat noses into Israeli politics since October 7th, declaring through the United Nations, for example, that Netanyahu is some kind of war criminal, that there's something like genocide, redefining genocide itself, butting their big fat noses into Israel's attempt to defend itself, denouncing Israel. I mean, okay, how many United Nations votes can we count Australia with? It is disgusting. The world can interfere with Israel's politics. In fact, it wasn't too long ago the president of my country, Obama, was directly interfering within Israeli politics. But Netanyahu, when you guys are morally responsible for the death of innocent civilians on a beach in Sydney, you have the nerve to say to Benjamin Netanyahu, stay out of our politics? It's not helpful. No, you and your whole ilk have been butting in with interfering with Israel's attempt to defend itself from violent savages, and you have the nerve to say that Netanyahu's interfering with your politics? No, you've got blood dripping on your hands, and you better attend to it in your own country and let Mr. Netanyahu attend to the violence that his country is being threatened by. But through the United Nations and all kinds of other organizations, you all have been butting into Israeli politics since October 7th. Absolutely despicable. The guy's got it, again, morally upside down. I hate to get passionate like this, but this piece of shit is completely responsible for that kind of moral attitude. Stay out of Australian politics? No. As Jewish children get slaughtered on a beach? I mean, that is outrageous.
And then, of course, there's the second point he makes, which is, well, no, this has nothing to do with the recognition of Palestine. Most countries in the world, I love it when people use those arguments. Well, most people disagree with you, so how can you be right? But let's, in Australia recognized Palestine a couple months ago, as did several Western countries. But if you look at the list, and I have it before me, let me read some of it. The countries that recognize Palestine: Algeria, Bahrain, Indonesia, Iraq, Kuwait, Libya, Mauritania, Morocco, Somalia, Tunisia, Turkey, Yemen, Afghanistan, Cuba, North Korea, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, really a who's who of countries that we all are lining up to illegally immigrate to. I mean, come on, you are, uh, basically claiming that you are on the side of the right by listing, without, of course, listing, and nobody's going to ask you on Channel 4 to list the countries that you use as some figures of authority of why we should take the side that you take. No, you've chosen to be alongside, to stand alongside with countries where, in some cases, you would get slaughtered just for being a Jew. And certainly countries that celebrated the attack of October 7th, in some cases officially. And yeah, you're using that as the reason why Australia recognizing a Palestinian state has nothing to do with the fact that immediately after we see an act of Palestinianism on Australian soil.
In logic, it is the logical fallacy ad populum. Look at all the people. Most countries, most people agree. Okay, that is absolutely irrelevant. Why don't you address the fact that you actually rewarded Hamas in recognizing a Palestinian state after October 7th? So that what you've done, sir, is evade the obvious encouragement you gave to this violence. It is a formula. It is a logical you're trotting out a logical fallacy of saying, well, all these countries must be right because, they're on the side of a Palestinian state, to cover up for the fact that a bunch of countries have just rewarded and encouraged exactly what happened a couple of days ago in Sydney. Jesus Christ, man. Talk about evasion, illogic, moral perversion. This guy, it's this mentality that is behind the deaths that happened over the weekend on the first night of Hanukkah in Sydney.
And this is the Australian right. Remember, this is the supposedly less bad side. Guys, if you're okay with going a few minutes over, let's keep going and get to that second video. But Daniel, I'll go to you first, and then I'll go to the super chat.
Yeah, I mean, again, using this, most nations do this. So, like when China invades Taiwan, are we just gonna stand by? Because most nations don't recognize the independence of Taiwan. Most nations believe Taiwan is a part of the People's Republic of China. Not even Western countries, as disgusting as it is, recognize the independence of Taiwan. It's only I think few nations, like two nations in all of Americas, and a bunch of nations in Micronesia and Polynesia. I don't know why these like Polynesian and Micronesian islands are so based. Like they both don't recognize Palestine. They recognize Israel. They even recognize Taiwan and all of China as part of the Republic of China. I mean, it's like nobody else even does that. So that's again, I guess our moral statute comes from a bunch of random islands in the Pacific. But again, would he take the same stance? I hope not, since well, thankfully this guy is a former prime minister. But as we've said, this was the former prime minister for the Liberal Party, which is the right wing. Australia has the Westminster system, so a two-party system like UK, meaning the Liberals are the right wing and the Labour is the left. So he was the leader of the right, and here he is basically repeating the same points Albanese, the current Labour prime minister in Australia, is making. It's disgusting. There's no moral conviction. There's no idea of right and wrong. He basically parrots the left. I mean, it's truly, I mean, disgusting. Like again, that's what's most disappointing, right? We are already losing on these singular issues. We are losing on mass shootings that are being failed to being prevented, synagogues being attacked. What happens when we have something more important, when we have to stand up, when Taiwan gets invaded, when something happens to Australia? What will we just stand by because they want it, so we're just gonna submit?
One of the newer trolls in the chat that I've seen in recent days says every Muslim is celebrating. I am absolutely certain that you're wrong. Not every person who identifies as a Muslim is celebrating, but enough are that the West should recognize that Islam is the problem, declare war, and yeah, make your ideology a thing of the past, certainly as a threat to the West, make it a thing of the past. Thank you, Rez, for a generous 50 Australian dollars super chat. And if it's Australian dollars, it also means you are up very early. So thank you for that. I think actually there's different. Okay. Anyway, I don't know what the time is there. I know we're more.
He disconnected.
Rising.
I was wondering, he just stopped mid-sentence. I was checking the time in Australia. Although technically, I mean, doesn't Australia have also like 3 time zones? So I'm not sure, but it's 6 a.m. in New South Wales. So assuming he is in that area, it would be
Yeah, my
6.
laptop didn't want that super chat read, but Daniel, I can't do it from my phone while I'm on Zoom. So if you can do it or already have,
Do what?
read the super chat.
Oh, so we have a super chat from Australia. From Rest, thank you so much. He says, have you seen the video circulating of Albanese attending and speaking at a pro-Palestine rally in his younger years? That alone makes him whole response to this, along with his recognition of a Palestinian state, very predictable. I mean,
Wow.
as again, it's sort of not surprising. Like we had the right-wing guy as well doing the same thing, and on one level, it's not surprising, and on another level, what do other nations have as an excuse, right? As much as we ramp on Australia right now, the fact is that most of Europe, yeah, I think most of Europe right now is recognizing the Palestinian state. That that is disgusting. I mean, France,
Well,
United Kingdom,
the, crit-
Spain, Portugal, Ireland, all of them, or no, I think Ireland did it earlier. All of
yeah,
them now, and
the
even
Irish
Spain.
were on the cutting edge of
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
So all of them now recognize the Palestinian state. What is the excuse for them doing so?
Well, the guy who's about to become mayor of New York City says, well, I'm not sure I'd use the term globalize the intifada anymore. Okay. Okay, when you're that screwed up as a politician, when we're that messed up as a culture, but I had not heard that about Mr. Albanese before. But as you say, Daniel, that's not terribly surprising. But thank you, Super Chatter, for informing me. I had really no idea that Albanese was that despicable on the issue. But I'm not terribly surprised. And that's really the sad one, as I say, one of the saddest elements of all of this is how unsurprising it really is, isn't it? Um, uh, what can you say? It's despicable. It's utterly despicable how many so-called minds in the West, and I use the term in the broadest sense possible, have been sucked in to this, sanctioning of the worst kind of savage violence in the world today, and the culture responsible for it. No,
Um,
it's not the fault of Jews for existing, or is Israel for existing, or Jews for wanting to live and survive. No, when you blame Zionism, that's what you're saying. There really ought not to be Jews who survive or have a place of safety. They ought to be continuously subject to what we just saw on the first day of Hanukkah in Australia. That's what they want. That's their goal. Concretize it. Every time you hear someone say something like that, concretize it in just those terms. This is what they want. Because it is. Whether they're evading, whether they're playing mental games with themselves, I'm not going to psychologize, but that's what they want. Exactly what happened. And it's inescapable now, right? It's obvious, as I say. It's not quite at the level of metaphysical self-evidency, but it's so overwhelmingly clear from the facts now that anyone who advocates that wants what we just saw. They want repeats of Hanukkah, Sydney, 2025.
Yeah, by the way, James, you mentioned the mayor-elect Daniel. The burger I was talking about was bacon cheeseburger. I don't know if that's still going to be available next time you're in New York, but what is available is a video we saw yesterday, and I want to show it again. This is of a pro-Palestinian uh, politician, senator in Australia who went to basically gloat. I don't know how else to put it. And yeah, I think it needs to be seen again because the fact that this happens, and this is not a part of the problem, according to the leaders of Australia. That is a big part of the problem. Let's watch that video.
Yeah, I don't have that one ready. If you give me
Okay.
like a minute, I can find it.
Well, yeah, if you can get it ready. So the name of this politician, I believe I have it somewhere, but I don't have that ready either. She is Marine Faruqi, and she is a senator for New South Wales, and she represents the Greens. Not at all a surprise. It's one of the many parties, but one of the leading anti-Semitic parties in the UK as well, led by a Jew. I know a self-hating Jew, but still a pro-Palestinian, therefore
It's not the
anti-Semitic.
tribe, it's the tribalism, people.
Yeah. So she was interviewed. Let's watch this clip on Sky News Australia. Yeah.
Pay his respects, he is heckled.
You have been
Shame on you.
Shame on
You're a
protests
disgrace.
where there have been calls for intifada and death to the IDF. How does this lead to anything else other than the terror attack that we saw here last night?
We are here today to give respect.
Do you
And
regret
show our
being
love.
at those pro-Palestinian protests that have only fueled anti-Semitism?
Today is about heart and humanity for those who have lost their loved ones, for those who have been injured by this.
Are you surprised? You can't possibly be surprised that your actions have been among those that have led to this. Would you like to apologise to the Jewish community?
I am here to provide support for the Jewish community and everyone else
Would you like to
who
apologise?
has
Yeah.
suffered.
So I want to talk about the other side of this interview. We saw how despicable this woman is yesterday. We see her kind of suppressing a smile. We see her closing her eyes. I don't know if we're supposed to believe that she's sad, but obviously she is there. But really, there's somebody who needs to be
No, no,
praised
no.
in that video, and that is Shari Markson, the interviewer. That is just very good journalistic work. Do
That
you
was.
regret being in protests where people called for what happened that you are now pretending to be sad about? That is, and what is she gonna say except close her eyes and
Well,
lie?
what you say is, I was grossly wrong. Deepest apologies for my terrible error. Yes, obviously I was wrong to support Palestinians like that in the past. She could have come clean. And, it is total moral treason if you genuinely have any sympathy for the victims of torture. It is morally obscene. It's a kind of moral treason to have sympathy for the torturers. I am paraphrasing Ayn Rand there. You cannot actually be compassionate for the victims of Hanukkah and Sydney if you have sympathy for the torturers, for the perpetrators. And you got to make a moral choice here, Senator. You can't sit on, there's no fence straddling when it comes to this, okay? Either you're on the side of civilization, decency, life, or you're with these monstrous, savage enemies who would slaughter innocent civilians. And it's a moral black and white here. It couldn't be any more clear, couldn't be any more sharply drawn. You cannot express sympathy for the torturers if you actually have any real sympathy for the torture victims. That is inconsistent. That is wrong. So yeah, what she should have said is, you're absolutely right. My deepest apologies, because guess what? It was morally wrong for me to ever support the Palestinian cause. She could have said that, Razi.
Yeah, not surprised she didn't. Daniel.
Right.
Well, first, Chandler says terrible microphone. Apparently, Australia hasn't discovered good sound equipment. And I don't know what it is, if it's like Sky News or something. But yeah, every single clip I got from Sky News from Australia, I had to edit afterwards to actually have even a decent sound. And I couldn't even edit this one. So that's why the sound here was pretty bad. I don't know what's happening. Maybe it's like a down under thing. It's they just haven't figured that out yet. But yeah, when it comes to again this politician, it was like a rehearsed statement she had. no engagement with what she was asking. Sort of, I'm here to pay respects for what I'm here to pay. Like, I don't know how these people can exist in any Western culture. The fact that anybody tolerates them, and again, it's not because of immigration; it's because of bad ideas that are unfortunately held by many natives, if not percentage-wise, maybe even more by the natives in some certain scenarios. But I, I mean, yeah, absolutely. This person has no place in politics. Shouldn't be there. But yeah, this is the state of Australia right now. That anti-Semitic event can happen, and these are the reactions. Thankfully, at least there are still better people in Australia, and both of these people were getting booed while talking to media, since some people do recognize the effect, and even the journalists, right, recognize the effect of these people on what has happened.
Yeah, that's the thing. I know decent Australians, and I know that there are decent people in Australia, and I'm gratified that these politicians are getting booed. But you know what you ought to do, my friends down under, is kick these bums out of office at your next opportunity. These people are not protecting you, the citizens of Australia, you, the residents of Australia. You're not being protected by your government. They mouth excuses like that when there's a slaughter on, your most famous beach. Get with it. It's really astonishing, the blindness. I mean, that's what these things show me. These people are completely unself-aware, and they're completely out of context when it comes to the facts of reality on the ground. It's like Islamophobia. What? Where are the groups of, in Australia or the United States or the United Kingdom? Where are the groups of Muslims getting, slaughtered simply because they're Muslim? It doesn't happen. That's not the problem. Okay. Right now, the problem is Islam, and it comes from their religion and the culture. Like you say, we used to have a saying, under Bill Clinton, what was his thing? It's the economy, stupid. No, it's the ideas, dummy. It's the ideas behind it. We didn't, Yoram Brook really says it very well, and for many years, we didn't declare war on the Blitzkrieg. We declared war on Nazism and, the Nazis in control of Germany. We have failed to identify the ideology here that is behind it. It's the ideas, dummy. It's not terrorism. It's not tactics. It's, it's the ideas of Islam that make them hate civilization all the way down to their toes. You're absolutely right, Daniel.
The first video Owen Jones did after the October 7th massacre was titled Palestinian Lives Matter. Last year, after the Jew hunt in Amsterdam, the first video Owen Jones did was to explain why the Jews were actually responsible for being hunted. So you can probably guess what Owen Jones had to say after this massacre, but if you can't, either go to his channel and see, or see our commentary on it on tomorrow's episode of The Reality Show, which will follow tomorrow's episode of The Daily Objective. The Reality Show is already up there. You can go ahead and preemptively like it and put the notification bell on. Make sure you don't miss that show tomorrow. Thanks, Daniel. Thanks, James. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We're back tomorrow with the Daily Objective and The Reality Show.
Be safe.